Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. The dark underbelly of this nation, and I have to say most nations, is the fact that the most innocent of our citizens, children, are all too frequently subject to sexual abuse and other forms of abuse. Of course, this happens at an astonishingly high rate in India and in fact in many other countries around the world. Now efforts are being made to try and stop that, to try and do something about it from the government side. Of course, NGOs and others have been trying for a long, long time. That includes a bill, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Bill, which is there. We are going to take a look at what the provisions of this mean. Will our children be any safer? Could there be aspects of this bill which actually have an unintended and possibly very negative implication as well? And to discuss that, we have an absolutely fantastic panel, which includes many of the people who have been doing some really sterling work in this entire field. Rahul Bose, actor, also his foundation has done a lot of work in the area of child sexual abuse. It's great to have you with us. Thanks. Pinky Virani, probably one of the best-known writers in this entire field, the author of Bitter Chocolates, also got a national award for her work in this particular area. Madhu Keshwar, activist and founder, editor of Manushi, wonderful to have you with us. Amod Kant, former Joint Police Commissioner, but also Secretary of Prayas, who's been working a lot with children in many capacities. Dr. Puneet Bedi, one of our top gynecologists, it's great to have you with us as well. And Madhu Gauriakshi, who's a Lok Sabha MP, but also is the member of the Standing Committee, which has really looked at the Prevention of Children from Sexual Offences Bill. Thank you all so much for being here. Why don't I start with you, sir? What exactly is it that the bill is seeking to do?
We have seen horrifying stories of 7-year-old children raped and killed. Oddly, of these offenders are ever caught and punished. Educational institutions to hospitals to orphan homes and school orphan wardens of the hostel, children hostels, juvenile jails. All these places are breeding grounds for these abuses on the children. So this law need to be implemented, brought in to protect these children from these such sexual abuses.
Before we turn to a closer examination of this particular bill and whether it does something, I just want to ask some of you who've done a lot of work in this field, how bad is the problem? Pinky, you want to start on that? How pervasive is it? How seriously is this something which should be keeping us awake at night, worrying about the extent to which we have children in this country being sexually abused?
I think that if parents really worried, then we wouldn't have the kind of figures that we do, because much of the protection begins from home, considering that 50% of all sexual abuse of our children happens at home.
Is it 50%? Some statistics say it's higher, a larger percentage.
It depends on which kind of statistic and which kind of study you're looking at. The government study, in fact, pegs it at more. Bitter Chocolate, the research which is done across upper, middle and lower class homes, and I'm specifying that not for class reasons, but because certain sections of society think that it doesn't happen in their homes. 1 out of 4 boys, and so you can imagine the number of girls, because girls are so much more easier prey. The government study that was in 2006-2007 was higher.
1 out of 4 boys in this country.
25% of boys under the age of 16 to 18, because we have a situation where our census figures break it up differently till 16 till 18. So I couldn't do a derivation, exact derivation. But it would be safe to say 25% of our boy children below the age of consent and 40% of our girl children below the age of consent, 50% of which happens in homes and among those who are in position of the child's trust.
You know, I have to say that those are some of the most shocking statistics that we should be... Actually, I'm surprised we don't focus more attention on it. Would you agree with statistics like that? 40% of all girls in this country facing sexual abuse. Is the figure as high as that?
Mr. Amod Kant was part of the committee that actually first did all the research and came out with an official figure of 53% of all children in this country have been sexually abused.
That's the government study.
See, this national study, the national study on child abuse, which was the Government of India's study, I think both of you talked about it. This national study examined 17,000 respondents. Let me clarify. It's one of the largest studies carried out globally. It was part of the United Nations study on the violence against children, and the Indian chapter was done by us, and it was Prayas which was doing it, and so I was the team leader. along with the Government of India's Joint Secretary. There, 53%, as Rahul said, 53% of children, 53% of children suffered sexual abuse. That is one. Secondly, surprisingly enough, the male and the female children. The male children also, it was thought, suffered sexual abuse less. They were also about 50%. And then again, the statistics as they go, that the actual abuse by the relations, neighbors, acquaintances, etc., known people, not strangers, was about 75%.
Yes.
It was very, very high. So abuse is there. I mean, this study was about a lot of abuses, but sexual abuse is definitely there in this country, needs to be corrected. And that is why this law is a direct fallout of that particular study.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.